Let's kill the sound now.
Yeah, I'll just hang this one up.
Okay. We're currently broadcasting. Actually, we'll also stop this broadcast. Do you want to
continue broadcast?
Okay, good.
Okay, is there any sound now?
Same thing.
That might just be the lag.
All right, so we're not doing anything here at all.
Unplug this.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's unplugged.
Yep, look up. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, look, we're broadcasting. System references.
Whoa. Jeez, let's mute that.
That's all right.
Where's the volume here?
Input. That you doing that or me? Oh, I think so. Okay, so now you should kill that, yeah. Okay, so now this should work now. Talking to that now.
Okay, can you hear me all right now?
You got it now. It's working now. Okay, we're not doing anything here. That is a lot of work.
Yeah. There. How's it look, Tony? Okay. So just so online folks know, there is about a 30 to 60 second lag with Google Hangouts on air. So what you're hearing, I said up to a minute ago, and I won't get your questions until, you know, I'll get them as soon as you send them, but it will be after you're responding to something I said. So fortunately, I haven't said anything important yet. I have a web page up if you want to see what I'm up to. I'll post things there. But mostly we're going to be using Blackboard for essential course materials and updates, and using the Google group for more informal discussion and for feedback and help on assignments. And we will be announcing in the near future some additional times at not on Mondays, at other times of the week, when I'll be available and Professor Andino will be available. So my contact information, which I think all of you have. So what we expect from you, we don't expect any prior knowledge of statistics. We'll be starting from square one, but we hope that you will ask questions, feel comfortable that it's a supportive learning environment. There are no dumb questions here. I will take any question seriously and will answer it to the best of my ability. And I hope that you're interested in gaining both some hands-on practical experience with statistical software, as well as a good intuitive understanding about what is happening behind the scenes. I will spend the lecture periods talking about conceptual stuff. I'm not going to be doing software during this hour. That will come afterwards in the lab session and in your homeworks and exams. There will be 2 exams. They will be open book, so you'll be able to bring a computer if you want. You will have the software that you're used to. It's not intended to test your memorization. It's intended to test your ability to apply the things that you have been learning in class in a generally non-time pressured environment. You'll have plenty of time to do the exams. The final project, we won't announce that we won't post it until after spring break, but I'm happy to tell you about it in advance if you want to know what to expect. Basically, it will be a poster presentation. You'll prepare something in a poster format just by printing out on sheets of paper, not like a fancy poster. A small research project that using real public health data. We will provide some data sets to you, and you're also welcome to bring your own data if you have data that you're interested in and would like to develop and analyze as part of the class. It'll be fun. On the last meeting that we have, everyone will take turns presenting their posters, and the instructors will go around and view them and grade them, and you'll have a period of several weeks to develop them piece by piece and do the whole project. If something is going to prevent you from completing any of these, please do let us know. So far, every semester I've been here, it has happened that at least one student has just stopped handing in things and stopped coming. That doesn't work out well. So I just want to tell you to be communicative if something happens, to let us know. Okay, and I guess I think I've covered what your expectations should be, that will be generally available through a variety of means and will provide a supportive learning environment in which you can feel comfortable asking questions, like this question. Yes? Mm-hmm. So the question was about an assignment on Blackboard. As far as I knew, there weren't supposed to be any assignments up yet. So, Tony, can you confirm? I suspect that's by mistake, that there's an assignment already up on Blackboard? Okay. All right, so for those of you online, Tony was just answering the question a bit. There is an assignment posted on Blackboard that's due in 2 weeks. That is it's called City Program, and it is an online sort of module in ethics and research, which is a requirement for all MPH students to take, that you'll complete through this course. If it's not clear how to do it, we'll post further clarifications. It's not a difficult assignment. You should know that if you have to get a certain minimum grade on each component in that one, but you can redo them if you don't meet the minimum score for them. You do need to complete the city program, though, before you finish this course. I'm just going to try to reload. All right, I think that finally everything is working perfectly, knock on wood. And at least before we've actually started covering any statistics. So our learning objectives for today, all of you here have already completed the first one. I guess I should have added to this ability to tune into the lecture remotely, which I think we've finally gotten to that point now. I'm going to go over the syllabus now briefly, and then we're going to get into some types of data. So let's see, syllabus. So this is posted on Blackboard. Okay, first thing about the required book. This is a change from last year. We went from a book that was about $100 for the new version to this book called Open Intro Statistics, which is free online. You can get a PDF that is made for screen viewing or for tablet viewing, And you can order a paperback for about $7 from Amazon, and I think it's a pretty good book. So download it or buy it, and please do let me know your impressions of it. It's a sort of an open source textbook, so it's one that I can actually make changes to, and I plan over the years to make changes to customize it to this course. You'll need some kind of statistical software. The one that we will be covering in labs is SPSS, and you can get that through the bookstore on a 6-month rental. However, I should add that I don't enforce use of any statistical software in here. I have had students in this class and other classes who are already familiar with some other piece of software. That's just fine. I myself am a heavy user of R in my research and in teaching of advanced classes. If you want to use a free alternative, it is definitely would be an extra challenge, but I will support that and help you to do that if you want to. So yes, question. So if you use another software besides SPSS, such as R, no, the steps will be different. The results should be similar or the same. I will attend the lab sessions myself, so I'll be around there to help out anyone using a different software method. And also through my office hours and online. So, you know, it is more challenging because the majority of the students will use SPSS, and Tony will be doing that in the labs. However, the things that you do in this class, the analyses are generally not that involved, and so to do them in whatever software is just a couple of steps. So it is not an unworkable thing to do, I think. And there are also graphical front ends that are free to R. So anyone who's interested, just come to me and ask, and I can talk to you in detail about it and show you some options. Yes, question. So the question is, besides the statistics, are we going to go over SPSS, the software too? Yeah. The general format of this course is I cover statistics, no software during the lecture hour, and then you have an hour and a half to hour 45 or so downstairs using software at the computer and learning how to do the stuff that we've done here hands-on. So yes, you will learn software during this course. Okay. Yeah, again, about lateness and absence and things, please just let us know. We can accommodate things, but we have to know what's going on in order to do that. Yes, another question. So to clarify, yes, well, for SPSS, it is a commercial software. You will need to use it. You don't necessarily need to purchase it, in that it is available on the lab computers here at the main campus at Hunter as well. So if you are able to get to campus conveniently, you can just use the lab computers that we have here. But you will need to use software. For most people, it will be Excel and SPSS, both of which are commercial software. What was your second question? Good question. So if you cannot make it to lecture in person, or just if it's more convenient for you to attend otherwise, you can attend online during the lecture period or later. I don't require that you be watching the lecture as it occurs. As soon as lecture is over, it will be there recorded, and you can watch it later. Yeah, you can go through Blackboard, or you can go to our YouTube channel and click and watch it. And that will be the same for the labs. They will the labs, the technology Tony uses takes a little bit longer to get it up onto YouTube, but all of the labs and the lectures will be available recorded for later viewing on YouTube, and that is just fine. If you're going to attend later, no, you don't need to let me know that. I will assume that a number of you are watching later, and in general, you're graduate students, and I will leave it to you to keep up with the lectures and that. I'm not, this attendance is for the purpose of CUNY. After I'm done that, I'm not going to take attendance anymore. That's up to you. The things that that we will notice is the assignments, the exams, the project, and as far as assessments, those are what really count. Yes. I tried using the Blackboard discussion board in the past, and I found it kind of clunky myself, and I found that there was not that much participation, at least when I tried it, so that was why I went to the Google group, and it seems to be kind of a lower barrier. People can use it from their smartphones and easily, so as far as like interactive discussion in this class, it's going to be the Google group. Like, I won't even start one on Blackboard. I mean, I could if there are a few people who would really rather post on Blackboard, but yeah, no, I mean, I think the Google group is very easy to use, and you can do it. You can use it either just through the web page if you don't like email or get too much email, or you can get it as email if that's what you like to do. And it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be your school email account. Be whatever you want, just as a way to communicate with the other students and with me. All right, so institutional policies. These are the standard policies of the university. I'm not going to go through all of them, but they apply to this course. So important dates and the schedule, I have put these also in a Google Calendar, which you'll notice under, where is it? Under course information, there's the calendar here. You can also import this into your own calendar if you want. And I think, oh, there's one other thing I want to point out to you in here. There's this appendix at the end of the syllabus on statistical notation, and I think this will be helpful to you and help in getting familiar with the letters and the Greek alphabet that we're going to be using. It's not a formula-heavy course at all, but but you need to know some of these standard statistical notations. And I will try to use them in a very consistent way as a way to help avoid confusion about things like when we're referring to a population and when we're referring to a sample. So some of the distinctions between these things are not just notation, but they have to do with understanding of the concept as well. And that's it for the syllabus. Any more? Yes, question? Sorry, what was your question? Yep. Oh. Okay, so thank you for pointing that out. I'll fix that before we get to April 13th. Okay. Yes, question. Yes, the assignments will be submitted through Blackboard, and the exams will be administered through Blackboard as well. We will post some time before it's due. There will be an actual assignment there for you to upload your city program certificate to, and for all of the future assignments. Okay, we have a bit of time left, so let's talk about statistics while we're at it. Statistics has a number of different connotations out in the world, from talking about baseball statistics to historical facts and things like that. And to me, it actually does not have a very specific meaning. It has a fairly general meaning, statistics, and it covers a variety of different things. But the components of it that we cover in statistics classes can be covered very broadly under these three categories of design, of thinking about how you're going to obtain data, description, which is just describing, making graphics, making numerical summaries of your data, and inference, which is making decisions, drawing conclusions from incomplete data, from some incomplete sample of all of the population that you're interested in. And statistics, part of why I got into it from physics and why I think you should be happy to be learning about it, is that it's useful. I think there can be no question that anytime you are dealing with data, whether it is numbers or not, if you have data, statistics is useful. And this is something that has been recognized since at least back to 450 BC, and records of people using averages to get something that they could understand out of a bunch of numbers. I thought this graphic was interesting because some of the things that they use, averages, replication, are still very basic, important things that we cover in this class and that statisticians use every day. So some definitions. The population has a very specific meaning when we talk about it, and it is the entire group that we're interested in. So that might mean everyone in the world, but it might be something more specific. It could be US adults, it could be residents of New York, it could be children under 12 in New York. The point is that it is everyone that we're interested in a particular study. So by way of example, favorite cities in the world. This was a study happened right about the time I was moving here, and it was a study of the world's favorite cities, in which New York, Zurich, London, Paris all ranked up at the top for various things. So in this case, the population was supposed to be the whole world. They pulled people from a bunch of different countries, not every country, but tried to make the argument that even though they didn't pull people from every country and they didn't pull everyone in any one of those countries, that this was representative of the world at large. So they used a sample, which is some subset of that entire group of interests. Obviously, we can't talk to everyone in the world and ask them what their favorite city is. We can only talk to a subset of the people. And how you choose that sample is going to be important to your conclusions. Obviously, if you focus on people in New York or Paris, you're going to get a different answer between those places and compared to people in other places. I had the impression that if you ask people in New York, it would rank low, but I don't know. In some cases, it is possible to actually question or collect data on every single person in the population of interest, and that's called the census. I think Tony will talk about that more, but that is, it happens in the US, it's actually in the US Constitution, happens in most countries, and it is the only case where you're ever going to see data collected from every single individual. And interestingly, when people analyze census data, they often end up taking samples anyways, just because it's hard to analyze data from 300 million people. So, and a single observation from a study, whether it is from a census or from a sample, is called a record. So one individual, what I collect from them, that produces a record. Descriptive statistics, I don't know if it always gets a fair shake as being an equally important part of statistics compared to inference and study design. But I think it is. I think descriptive statistics are an essential part of understanding data when you collect them and communicating it to other people. And there are examples of fantastic works of descriptive statistics, such as this history of pestilence in New York City, showing the number of deaths per 1,000 in population along the y-axis and year along the x-axis, showing us various spikes and known reasons behind those spikes. Back in the day before we had software to make computers, there are still some of the best examples of descriptive statistics that are available today. And finally, inferential statistics. That is when we want to take our information from a sample, some incomplete picture of the population, and say something about the entire population. And an obvious example of this is statistical polls, when you go and collect data from maybe 1,000 people and then try to predict who is going to win an election, or say overall what the popularity of a particular politician is. And the things that we're interested in as part of the interest are how great is the uncertainty and what are the sources of those uncertainty. So here are 4 different polling companies showing how there's a bit of difference between each one of them. So you can imagine that some of that might just be a random difference due to them having asked different people. Maybe some of it is even a systematic difference. If one of these studies somehow always ends up with a higher or lower approval rating for the president. Things like that happen. So in public health, I'll be interested to learn over the course of the semester if any of you are using statistics in your jobs or if you are doing research that uses statistics. But many people do use it in public health. In my area of work, it's asking questions like, does a new treatment for cancer work? Or is there a difference in the genetics of tumors between patients who respond well to therapy and patients who do not? A couple other examples. Cycling in the city, is it becoming more dangerous? Obviously, a difficult question to answer. You could base it on hospital admissions due to cycling accidents, but you are going to see some natural variation, random variation from one day to the next, from 1 month to the next, in addition to variation over time in the numbers of cyclists as well as in the safety. Or do public health interests issues such as cycling, do they differ across the city? There's spatial differences and inference about differences between populations. Oops, this one didn't quite highlight correctly. I'm going to talk about types of data. So nominal data gets its name because it's not really a number. It's only nominally a number. When we use software to analyze data like these, such as sex, male, female, or vital status, as someone has survived or has died, they will get coded in software as zeros and ones as a matter of convenience, but they're not really numbers. Obviously, maleness has nothing to do with 0, femaleness nothing to do with 1, so these are nominal data. And nominal data that have only 2 categories are binary or dichotomous data. And if there are 3 or more, such as blood types, that is categorical data. So binary data is sort of a subset of categorical data, and they're only nominally numbers. Ordinal data are data that are also sort of nominal in that they're not, you can't do math on these numbers, and they represent something besides really a quantitative thing, but they have an order to them. So an example is this. There are various performance scales, Karnofsky performance scales, that are used to describe the condition of a patient as they enter treatment. And this performance scale is on a scale from 0 to 4, ranging from fully active to fully disabled. So there's clearly an order to these, but it's again not fully a quantitative number. So the order of them is important, but the magnitude is not. Like the difference between ambulatory and disabled is not the same thing as the difference between no work and ambulatory. It's just an order. And rank data is an important type of this. For example, the order in which participants finish a race. Or the ranking of diseases in terms of their prevalence in the US. So the #1 cause of death in the US in 2010 was heart disease, with almost 600,000 people dying of heart disease, followed very closely by cancer, and then in a distant third, chronic lower respiratory diseases. So you can see here, these are quantitative in that the difference between them means something. The ranks are not quantitative in that the difference between 1 and 2 is not the same as the difference between 2 and 3. Okay. So quantitative data, as I mentioned, are data where the difference between them matters. They're data where we can actually use arithmetic. We can add, we can subtract, we can divide them, we can double, we can halve, and that means something. Now, discrete quantitative data are data that can only take particular discrete values, such as counts. So these are counts, the total numbers. That's discrete quantitative data. I'm not really going to emphasize the difference between discrete and continuous data because often the difference between them is kind of academic. Like, these counts are discrete, but they're so large that it doesn't really matter that they're discrete. They might as well be continuous values in terms of anything that you're going to actually do with these data. And then if you convert these to rates, so here are the rates per 100,000, you end up with decimals in them, even though it's still a discrete data. So that's again why I don't really emphasize that difference so much. I'm not going to talk a lot about rates and standardization in this course because you will get that in much greater detail in your introduction to epidemiology. I'll just mention that these rates per 100,000 have been standardized to a common population. So what that means is that, in 2003, the age distribution in the US was different than it was in 2011. And so that has an effect on how many people are dying of these different diseases. And if you want this to be actually representative of the risk of dying of these diseases, you need to account for those differences in particularly the age distribution of the population, and you will cover that in your epidemiology class. I just made a brief note here that you notice there's this fluctuation in the 4 or 5 positions. 1, 2, and 3 are very consistent. Any ideas on what that fluctuation is? Is that because in 2009 diabetes was a greater risk than in 2010 when it was chronic lower respiratory diseases? This is the whole population here, remember. It's not just a sample. Who thinks that is definitely an indication that diabetes was less of a problem in 2010 than in 2009? Nobody. I agree. So most likely a lot of that fluctuation you're seeing in the 4 or 5 position is due to chance. Even though we're looking at a large population and quite a few events here, it's only 17, so 1,673, 1,653. There's a certain amount of randomness in these deaths. So that is the kind of question that we will get into as we get into inference later in this course. Is this difference, is this change from 1 year to enough, can this be attributed to random chance, or is this something consistent? Is this something that is evidence of a change? All right, So again, the discreteness is not that important when we get into large numbers. The difference between a discrete variable and a continuous variable. And with all kinds of quantitative variables, the magnitude is important and arithmetic applies. So finally, continuous data. These are things like time, weight, length, mass, things that are measured with decimals, and in theory can take any value. In practice, of course, we tend to think of time in discrete units like days or hours. We think of weight in discrete units. So unless it's something that is small and the difference between those discrete units is big, not that important. Continuous data can be bound or not bounded. So weight obviously is bounded. You can't weigh less than 0. Same with length and mass. And that we're not going to suffice to say that if you have bounded data and you have a lot of data that's right at one of the bounds, that's going to affect how you analyze the data. It's not something that we're going to really run into in this class, though, having a lot of times of exactly 0. That's something that I get into in my advanced class in the epidemiology and biostatistics program. And an important feature of continuous data is that all values are possible within those bounds. There's no forbidden areas within there, or that would be a discretization. Okay. I don't think I'm going to make it through all of the slides today because I want you to we had a bit of technical difficulties. I think I'll kind of rush through the rest of the slides and get you down into the lab. So I'm going to, there are a few slides here on graphical summarization of data that I think you can take a look at yourself. You'll have a chance to do these things on your next assignment. But briefly, we're going to cover contingency tables, which are something that we use for non-continuous data, for nominal, for categorical, even for discrete data. And all it is a table of counts. So if you have just one variable, it's just a summary of how many of each of the possible values it has. If there's a clinical trial with a treatment and a control group with 50 in the people in the treatment, 50 in the control, that's your contingency table. If we ask a number of patients what kind of severity of pain they have, and we get answers of mild, moderate, and severe, this is a contingency table. Contingency tables are equivalent to bar charts. If you can show something in a bar chart, then you can also show it in a contingency table. They can also be used for 2 variables. So if you have 2, then it becomes a two-dimensional contingency table. So this would be a 3x2 contingency table, where we have our treatments and control groups and reports of how much pain the people in each group are reporting for each of those. And I'm writing down here the marginal totals. That's something I'll refer to. We'll get back to this more in this course. And if we divide these marginal totals by the total number of people in this study, 100, we get what we call marginal probabilities, which is the probability. So this marginal probability is the probability that a person in this study was part of the treatment group, 50% or 0.5, and 0.5 that they were in the control group. So a marginal probability just sums up all the other variables and gives you your total probability of having a particular value for one of the variables. And there is also a bar chart equivalent for two nominal or ordinal variables. So again, if you can show it in a contingency table, you can show it in a bar chart and vice versa. Now for discrete and continuous data, we often discretize it further. So that is, break it into bins to create basically an ordinal variable. And then we can visualize it using those same tools, the bar chart and the contingency table. Very common in epidemiology and in statistics because it's easier to show and easier to numerically summarize a nominal or ordinal variable. So if, supposing that pain scale had actually been on a scale of 0 to 100, maybe instead of trying to summarize all of those variables, you put them into these 3 bins and show them in the same way. And when you do that, you have a choice of how many bins to put it into. So here is an example of a histogram with a lot of bins, and the same histogram with a smaller number of bins. And if we had gone to the extreme of only 3 bins, then all of the bins in those 3 areas would have been added together. So it's a subjective decision how you discretize your data. Your software will usually do something by default, but it's something that you may want to change. You definitely want to know how to change so that you can decide what is the most informative way to describe your data. We're going to be introducing you to box plots as well. And box plots are, I think, less familiar than the bar plots and pie charts and such, but they're a very good way of summarizing and describing continuous and quantitative variables. And you'll get a chance to make them and to interpret them. But here's how to interpret them. They tell you, I'm not going to talk about this too much today. We're going to use bar charts more, and we're going to talk about things like percentiles and quartiles later. And I don't want to confuse people by rushing through some stuff like this that is probably new for a number of you. And just as a side note, in general, when you're describing your data, it is kind of an artistic decision how you want to show it. And there is usually a range of options from a lot of summarization to very little summarization. And at one extreme is plotting every single one of your data points. So this is the same data that was shown in the box plot and in the histogram, but actually just going and putting every one of the data points on a number line, which you would think would be the most informative thing, but it actually isn't necessarily, because sometimes it is just kind of overwhelming to see all of the data, and you can interpret it better by doing a certain amount of summarization of it. Point of interest, you can do them together. You're not going to have to do this, don't worry. And okay, that's the end of what I have for lecture today. We're going to reconvene down in rooms C05 and C06 in 5 or 10 minutes. Go first into the room that Tony is in. We'll see if there's a need to use an overflow room. He'll be projecting into that room, and I'll be in the second room to be going around and helping people. So either room that you're in, you'll be fine. Thank you.